Hi everyone, I put green pastel pencil to render this umbrella and I'm going to use masking fluid because the spokes will be the lighter area and the background will generally be darker, so it'll make life much easier. But my masking fluid, I've only had it a few months, and in this warmer climate it's set. So what I've done, I've added 1 or 2 pipettes of water and just tilted it with the lid on, not shaken it because that won't do it any good. It could separate, but just gently shake it and then it'll work. In fact, it will dry quicker, so I'm quite pleased with that. I tried that before and it was successful. So I'm going to use this brush. Never use your watercolour brushes, but this is an old brush, but I'm actually going to use the handle to just render these spokes. Leaving a few gaps to make it look a little bit more natural. I'm painting this over the top of where I've gone with the pastel pencil, roughly in a random sort of way. It's just a guideline really. Just quite quickly doing this. And then I've got, in fact no, I'll use the handle to do a few little dots where the flowers are on this umbrella. But I'm actually going to use a natural sponge. I've torn a little bit off this natural sponge. Let's see how this works. Oops. Oh. Right. Let's get rid of that. These things happen. I don't know whether that's going to, I think this might be all right. So what I'm going to do, hold it up to the light. Feel it, does feel all right. I think that could become part of the painting. When things like this happen, it is good to not just think, oh no, that's the end of that, but to think, well, what could I do? Could I turn it upside down, like I do frequently do that? Turn it around, maybe have it another way around, but I'm going to just keep it like this. I'm just having a look. Yes, I think I'll put another spoke there. Right. And then with this natural sponge, I'm going to do the flowers. I'll just get that on the computer, that's right. So I'm looking at the same thing as you can see. I love these umbrellas. They're so elegant and just dainty and beautiful, and they're just, that's quite big blobs now. I think that I could have perhaps dabbed it on some kitchen roll, but that's okay because I can always darken it rather than lightening watercolour, then it gets a bit tricky. I've let the masking fluid dry and I'm going to use 3 primary colours, yellow, red and blue, that I often use. An Indian yellow, Alizarin crimson and Antwerp blue. So I'll use my trigger spray and spray a few sprays, so I shall have wet and dry parts of the paper. And then I've got a number 12 watercolour brush, and I'm going to drop in this lovely yellow from the corner here. In fact, I may lift it up and let it run down. That's what I sometimes do. I've got my kitchen roll ready. I've actually turned it round, I should say. I've turned the image round because I think it might work better that way, but I might turn it round again, so we'll see how we go. A little bit more. I like to mix paints, watercolour paints, on the paper rather than in the palette. So I think that's going to be enough there. Let it run a little bit. So the masking fluid will resist the paint, and now I'm going to add some alizarin crimson, just blot the wet out. I think I shall add that across the middle. The shadowy areas will be around the centre, I think, a little bit. So just playing this by ear, spontaneous painting. And then I've got the nice flower heads with the masking fluid I put on. With the darker paint, it's showing through better than with the lighter, but I like the thought of the sun coming perhaps from that direction. So it's very, yes, uncontrollable because it is quite wet, but I want it to be uncontrollable because I want the paint to go where it wants to go with this wet and wet technique. A bit stronger here, perhaps a bit of spattering, and then flicking for smaller little globules of paint. And now I'm going to add Antwerp blue. I'm going to put this predominantly in the middle. Should I wipe that up on the board? No, I'll leave it because I'm having such fun. This will really bring out the spokes of the umbellifera. I'm not sure how to pronounce it, but because when this is dried, that I shall rub off the masking fluid and be left with the white paper. Really like doing spontaneous painting, but it's a bit more random because you can't control the paint, this wet and wet, very wet paint I'm using. Probably mixed to semi-skimmed milk consistency. Now if I add the trigger spray that I'm tempted to do, it will dilute it, and bearing in mind watercolour dries 20% a good 20% lighter, so this will go lighter, but I might finish it with Inktense blocks, which are lovely intense colours. I am just going to dab that now. I'm just going to do a little bit of trigger spray in that corner, soften things up and let it run down. Drop a little more yellow in that top corner. If I let it run together too much, what will happen is that the colours will desaturate. The yellow, the red and the blue, they will desaturate, which means they will go a lovely tertiary colour, but I actually want this to stay bright rather than an earthy tertiary colour. I want it to be quite bright. So I'm going to leave it now to dry before I carry on. It's dry now, and I've got putty rubber here, and I'm going to rub out the masking fluid with it. I actually am going to settle with it this way round, I think. I may change my mind again. Sometimes I use my fingers to get the masking tape off, but if it's a lot like this area here, I would probably use a putty rubber. Now this is the area down here where I spilt the masking fluid, and I think that's going to add to the textural effects and the highlights. And then I hold it to the light, make sure it's really gone. A little bit trigger spray, and I've got an Inktense colour in keeping with the colour here, to darken certain areas. I've actually just now done a little tonal sketch, just showing where I want most of the darks, so it only took about 15 seconds, and if it looks alright, like I think it does here, that's where my darkest darks will be, then chances are the finished painting will look fine. Won't do too much more. I hope you're enjoying this video, and if you are, please like and or subscribe. Thank you for watching, and see you next time.